Brian Murphy and Jeremy Fowler of the Pioneer Press here at Winter Park, entering Week 11, and the Vikings are sitting there at 2-7, coming off their worst loss in 27 years. The vibe isn't really good right now. How would you assess sort of the state of despair and whether or not there's even anything that might be worth evaluating for fans over the last 7 games here?
Well, it doesn't even get much better, Brian. I mean, look at the last 7 games. 5 of these teams have winning records. You know, the Saints, the Falcons, reputable teams. I mean, they might squeeze a win out of Denver or Oakland, maybe finish 4-12, 5-11 at best at this point, even if you're optimistic. So it's a very low time in the team's history. You know, they played some teams close early on, but then these poundings they've taken on primetime television when everybody's watching. I mean, the Bears game and the Packers game, I mean, you know, they've suffered some of their worst losses against these teams. These are division rivals that you're supposed to have pride against. So, you know, I mean, if you're a fan, you don't even know what to take from this team or how to feel about them anymore, you know?
It seemed like there was a real false sense of urgency coming out, false sense of security actually coming out of the bye. They had a road win, which really could have been a loss at Carolina, but for a missed 39-yard field goal at the end. And then they're coming off a bye, well-rested, a lot of optimism. Hey, you know, we played Green Bay tough a couple of weeks ago. Maybe we can go into Lambeau and pull off an upset. They didn't even show up.
Right, we've talked about this. You know, you weigh truth versus denial. Do they think maybe they're a little better than they are? I wonder if they took those first 3 games where they really just, you know, they struggled in the second half but played so well in the first half. You know, they decided to look at the glass half full and think that we're really as good as we were in the first half. But, you know, on paper right now you're a 2-7 team. That, you know, I mean, you're looking at the number 5 pick in the draft next year. You're on the very small end of the totem pole. You know, I don't know if it wasn't humbling before, then the Packers game certainly validated that humility. Now they can look at it and really take a hard look in the mirror and say, this is where we are. We just have to scrap just to play a complete game at this point.
I mean, now Leslie Frazier took over last year with 6 games left after Brad Childress was fired, went 3-3 as an interim coach, earned the job to be a full-time head coach. A lot of people said, look, you know, he put out a lot of fires. You know, he's a calming influence. Coming into this season, I don't think anybody expected them necessarily to even contend for the division title, but at 2-7 and with a team that seems to be sort of disengaged at this point, I mean, what kind of work does he need to do over the last 7 games to not only keep the team together, but also kind of, you know, reinforce or redefine himself as the right man for the job?
Yeah, I think they need to show that they have a counterpunch. You know, they've had some good first halves at times, but they come out and keep getting pounded in the third quarter. You know, is that reflective of the coaching staff? I mean, probably that's usually what you look at is halftime adjustments, what teams are making them, what teams aren't. So I think he's got to prove that he can have a complete coaching game, you know, and win some of these tough ones. You know, I mean, I think that he'll get some time. I think he'll get a second year here. The Wilfs seem to have faith in him, and you know, they invested a lot in Brad Childress, had to pay his buyout, and they just signed this guy to a 3-year deal. You know, I think they want to give themselves a little bit of a cushion and not make a rash decision, even if they do go 3-13, 4-12. But you know, he's got a lot to prove. I mean, there's you know, it's something that the team has penalty issues. You know, they make mistakes, they're not disciplined, and that does fall on coaching in a lot of ways.
And finally, you know, to address Christian Ponder, I mean, 3 games into his tenure, you know, the first couple of games there was a lot of optimism, a lot of positive energy that he brought and sort of in his play. You know, took a step back in the sense that he faced a really tough Green Bay defense that was eager to blitz and did blitz on him and kind of exposed some of his shortcomings. Where do we see him right now, and what's left for him to prove over the final 6?
Well, I think he's a bum. I mean, they have to draft a quarterback in April. You know, now you know he had this game that he was kind of destined to have at some point. You know, there was a lot of optimism the first couple weeks, but you know he was destined for a letdown. I think it's going to happen to rookies. He said he didn't anticipate this. You know, I think it just came down to, you know, I think they wanted to expect the blitz coming, but they just maybe didn't have either the personnel or enough blocking packages to help him, or he didn't step up in the pocket quickly enough. He even admitted that. You know, Clay Matthews is coming. You know, he maybe waited too long as opposed to moving up in the pocket or even using his mobility and play action to just get around it. You know, so he'll learn from it. Yeah, the accuracy, I think, at this point is an issue. I mean, he's barely completing 50% of his passes. You need to be in that 60 range to be a successful NFL quarterback. I think he knows that. And this game, you know, he didn't complete the third down passes that he did. He didn't bail them out like he was able to the first couple games. Green Bay had a great game plan, but he's got to adjust now. Teams are going to come at him early and often.
So that'll wrap it up here from Winter Park, heading into Week 11 game against Oakland. Not a lot of joy in the locker room, but a lot of joy in the media room because you know there's always something to write about with this team anyway. So you know, hopefully we'll see you guys after the Oakland game, whether they'll be 2-8 or 3-7. So for Jeremy Fowler, this is Brian Murphy saying take care.